Let's get peppy. It is PEP 96, a fitting tribute, I feel, to the dear departed Queen dying at 96.
Yes.
A PEP in her honour.
There'll be a 96 gun salute in Canberra this afternoon.
There will be.
And you're getting PEP episode 96.
There will be 96 minutes of quality analysis in this PEP.
That would be one of the shortest PEPs ever.
Well,
if we kept it to 96.
and about 20 minutes of crap.
Yes.
So
Okay.
I won't tell you what.
Okay.
I am Chaz Licciardello. I am here with His Royal Daveness, Dr. Dave Smith. Tell us who you are, Dave, because I always forget to do that.
Okay, yes. I'm at the University of Sydney, the US Studies Centre. Nothing that I say should be construed as the opinion of the University of Sydney or the US Studies Centre, because those are big and multivocal institutions that do not speak with one voice. Everything that I say today is my opinion.
I'm at the ABC, where they have no opinions on anything. So
They're not allowed to.
You should never construe anything I say as opinion of the ABC. If you want to know the ABC's opinion, just ask Chris Kenny on Sky News. He'll tell you. I normally start off with updates and correspondences and so forth. There are a lot of updates this week, so I'm going to spread them out a little bit throughout the episode. But firstly, I'd just like to just speak to the last episode I did with Bill Wyman. And Bill and I had a really interesting debate. I know you wouldn't have listened to it, Dave. You don't need to lie.
I saw that you had done it.
Yes. We had an interesting debate last week about how Democrats should approach Republicans, because I had a poll there about the fact that Republicans were more prepared to be friends with Democrats than Democrats were to be friends with Republicans. And we spoke about that at length. There were a few really interesting comments that came off that under the videos in the podcast and Facebook and YouTube. And so I just want to just note them. Like there was stuff from TK, Jackie Moran, Marco Fante, Rip Van Wando, amongst others. They all disagree with my view.
Okay.
You'll be unsurprised to hear. I'm not surprised to hear that.
That's good. We encourage robust disagreements.
Totally. This is what I was going to say. I just want to, a lot of people made the point, which I think is worth acknowledging because it's a great point.
Yes.
That when we talk about polls suggesting Democrats don't want to associate with Republicans, you kind of need to know who these Democrats are and what they think you mean when you say Republicans.
Right.
Because TK, for instance, gave the example of a woman not wanting to be living with an Andrew Tate type, for example.
Right, yes.
That's very reasonable.
Yes.
Jackie gave the example of a trans person not wanting to live with someone who makes that person's life political.
So hang on, this poll was, would you live with...
Well, there was a whole bunch. There was a number of them. It was, would you live with them? Would you date them? Would you be friends with them? Would you have you lost a friendship over? Like it was many, many different iterations of basically...
Any poll that asks me, do you want to live with X, I'm probably going to say no. I don't want to live with anyone other than the people I'm currently living with.
This is what we like about you, Dave. Like me, you're a misanthrope in the best possible way. Another point that came off that, what those folks were saying was that, and this is true, that the Democrats are more likely to be women or minorities or vulnerable people. Statistically, they're much more likely to be that.
Yes.
And so maybe they just want to avoid conflict at their expense.
Yes.
Which is reasonable. That's not intolerant.
Yes.
That's very reasonable. And that's understandable, right? So I did want to acknowledge that. That is a good point.
Yes.
And I just want to put it out there. But also I want to thank anyone who does want to debate in our comments, because they're actually really nice comments.
Yeah.
Like generally, it's a very nice comment section. And I can't actually feel it. I mean, I know we're a small podcast, so you can get away with this.
That's right.
Before the swill join you. But like we've got a really intelligent comment base. And I like that. And I especially like that because I'm not a sensei. I see this as us all learning this stuff together and pushing each other. So
right.
I appreciate when people go, you know what? Shit call, Chaz. By the way, I haven't changed my mind, but I think they made a great point.
Okay.
So I'm just acknowledging that great point.
That's good.
So if you do have any points to raise, put them, or stories you want to draw my attention to, just put them in the comments. I do read them, although I tend to read them more in the day or two after I post, because the comment thread gets a bit long after a while, and then I just don't go back. So get in early if you want me to read it. Anyway, and I am going to try to do a few stats nuggets that aren't poll-based, because someone did make the point, they are very subjective.
Yes.
And the best stats nuggets are more objective.
Right, yes.
So I've got a few today. So, but before we move on, I just want to I am going to ask you what you think about all the fascism stuff, because me and Bill spoke about that at length.
At length, yes.
And I'm sure you have a view.
I do have a view.
But before you do, I just want to just make one more point in this area.
Yes.
And about, because I didn't make it very well last time. And
Okay.
I was thinking about this a lot over the last week because so many people were telling me I was wrong.
Yes.
I was thinking about people making broad brush statements about Democrats or about Republicans, either way.
Right.
And I feel like increasingly we don't actually know many people from the other side, like personally. Right, because as time goes on, people are geographically sorting more efficiently.
Yeah.
Like and especially the left tend to be in cities.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying don't know anyone, but we know less than we used to, I think. And you might disagree on that one.
I would need to see actual evidence.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. But I would say that for many political types, our major contact with the other side is either through TV or social media.
Right.
In particular, social media.
That is true. Yes.
And
you're not seeing people at their best on.
Well, there's a thing.
Media.
Like there's a cliche out there about social media bubbles keeping you amongst your people. I think that's completely wrong.
No,
I think it's the opposite. I think social media, you find lots of the other side.
This is why Truth Social was always bound to fail, because most conservatives didn't actually want a social media platform that was purely conservatives. They wanted to be able to go out and troll liberals.
Yes, that's right. That's
right. And also.
Nobody
admits to this, except for Chaz, but it's true. People like to read stuff that makes them angry.
Oh, yes.
They like to read stuff that makes them think, what an absolute idiot this person is. Totally. Like, how representative they are of the other side. Like, some people actually don't want bubbles.
Yeah, this is where I was going. I was just saying the fact is, we do see the worst of the other side. We do see the most obnoxious, etc. And I think it's very easy as a human being to, if that is what you see 90% of the time when you see a representative of the other side, you think that represents, not necessarily 90% of the other side, but maybe 75% or 60% of the other side. When in reality, it's probably more like 5 or 10% of the other side. You just don't know.
Yes.
And so I think that's number one why it's good to mix with real people.
Yes.
Subject, of course, to those people not making your life a misery.
Yes.
As noted by our commenters.
Yes.
But I also think that it's that this in itself helps this phenomenon delegitimizes the opposition in the view of either side.
Yeah.
And that in itself is corrosive to democracy.
Yeah.
Because it's very hard to concede power to someone who you think is a complete dickhead.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've gone beyond delegitimization into the realm of demonization.
Yeah, I think
which is it's on another level. It's beyond just delegitimization.
But anyway, that's my bit. You talk about the fascism thing.
Okay, yeah. So first of all, let's just acknowledge the political realities around this. Biden said this knowing the controversy that it would generate, intending to generate that controversy, intending to make a lot of Republicans upset, intending to generate an entire discourse of Republicans saying, how dare you call us a fascist? We demand an apology. Yeah. This is not like the basket of deplorables comment, which I don't believe Hillary Clinton actually particularly wanted to be heard beyond Democratic fundraising circles. This was a very deliberate use of language by Biden.
Yes.
And one of the reasons why he did it is because he knows that there is a small but significant sliver of people who consider themselves Republicans out there who didn't vote for Trump and who won't vote for a Trump-aligned Republican Party, and who one of the words that they do use is, to talk about the takeover of the party that they once considered there. One of the words that they use is fascist.
Yeah.
That, we don't... Well, I can't, because you have to come up with a pretty strong justification in the environment of American Party ID not to vote for the party that you've always voted for. If you say, look, it's being taken over by a bunch of fascists or, Christian nationalists or whatever, that's the sort of way that you justify that to yourself. I firmly believe Biden's real audience in this was those Republicans. Okay. And he was basically saying, okay, I know a bunch of you didn't vote for Trump last time around. You cannot vote for Republicans this time around because Trump still controls this party and the fascists have taken it over. So I think that is what Biden was doing.
And you think he was backing it up with a speech 2 days later?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. This is who Biden is aiming at. Biden, one of the reasons why he won in 2020 was because of that Republican defection from Trump. That is what he's trying to keep going. Now, having, with all of that on the table, I think the, level of accuracy in the term semi-fascist is almost irrelevant. But I will.
That was what I talked about.
I will. Yeah. But I
will.
I will address that. I remember saying in 2016 that I couldn't imagine Trump as a fascist because fascists believe in something greater than themselves. And Trump, he certainly doesn't have a fully developed fascist ideology, nor do most of his supporters. I'd say there is a significant little core that do, but, nor do most of his supporters. And also, a Trump presidency, even if it's, he comes back as being a lot more authoritarian than he was, and a lot more effectively authoritarian, that still doesn't look like what we would understand as fascism in terms of, fascist Italy or Nazi Germany or some of the Latin American regimes that went fascist. So semi is a very important qualifier here. What there is some emotional resonance with fascism. The idea that the country has been captured by the far left, and so therefore you can't trust liberal democratic processes like elections, and that if you ever do retake power, what you need to do is punish your enemies en masse and dismantle a lot of those liberal democratic institutions. That actually does have a lot of resonance with fascism. Like when you look at fascism in the 1930s, and 40s, its two big enemies were basically liberalism and communism, and they did have, a tendency to call all of their enemies communist. So, and to use the communist threat to justify everything that they were doing. So there is a certain amount of emotional resonance there. There are a couple of other key points that I think were very visible on January 6th. One of those is basically the belief in redemptive violence, that the country has gone so far, liberal democracy has led this country so far down to the path of destruction that the only way to redeem it is through violence, through a violent revolution where your enemies will be killed, where your enemies will be wiped out. Now, what Trump promises is a softer version of that. It's more like where your enemies will be fired. But I do think that what a lot of his supporters hear is a more violent version of that. There's also the glorification of uniformed violence that has been part of Trump from the beginning. Trump was the first pro-police brutality candidate in quite a long time. You might remember in the 2016 campaign saying police should actually bash suspects' heads on
the frame of the door.
Yeah. on the frame of the door. Yeah. The way that Trump pardons war criminals en masse, saying that they are that this is all justified in defense of their fellow soldiers and in defense of their country. To me, the single creepiest, most fascist thing about the Trump presidency was the fixation on what he called angel families. So angel families were people who had lost family members to murder by illegal immigrants. There was a lot more focus on this group than there was on any other victim of crime during the Trump administration, even though this is a very, very tiny portion of victims of crime in America. But you would have Trump out there with these families holding photos of the victims. They're always uniformed law enforcement around as well, and giving these thunderous, vengeful speeches about what has to be done about illegal immigration. There was something very fascist about that, because one of the sort of core elements of fascism is basically a cult of sacrificial death. And this idea of these murder victims will be raised to a greater status of meaning by their sort of sacrificial status to the nation, that was just absolutely creepy. Basically we use these victims as a way of more firmly enforcing the boundaries between insider and outsider. That always, in my mind, was sort of the most fascist element of Trumpism. So, as I said, the accuracy of the slur is actually pretty irrelevant. But I could see some merit to the semi-fascist label given some of the emotional resonances with fascism, but a Trump administration would not be a fascist regime.
I'm really glad that I asked you about this because what you've just said, it has zero overlap with the area we were talking about last week.
Okay,
so
right.
So that's really good. It's a completely different perspective.
Yes.
Like there's no recovering the same ground at all. So that's great.
Yes.
What I would say off the back of that is while you've given some great aspects of the definitions of fascist and how they might relate to Trump, Joe Biden himself, when he was in his speech, in his speech, he never mentioned the word fascist.
Yeah.
Like that was his semi-fascist was the comment before the speech.
Yeah.
In the actual speech, he elaborated a little bit what he was referring to.
Yes.
And unsurprisingly, had nothing to do with academic definitions of fascism.
Yeah.
But the two things he seemed to, and I was glad he did because he used the word they a lot, which I didn't like. I didn't like the vagueness of they because when you say they all the time, it allows bad faith interpreters to interpret how they want to.
Right, yeah.
And they'll take that license and they'll run with it as they have. But anyway, what he basically highlighted people who don't accept the outcomes of elections.
Yep.
And people who either promote or don't condemn violence in order to get their way for political ends, right? That were his two major areas.
Yes.
And off the back of that, there was an awful lot of whataboutism coming from Republicans, as there often is in these cases when one side accuses the other of something. They go, oh, what about that? And I promised that I would refer to that in this episode at the end of last episode, so I'll just do that quickly now.
Okay.
Why I think that's a bullshit charge.
Yes.
The whataboutism thing in this case. Okay. Well, let's take first of all the people who don't condemn political violence being part of the problem.
Yes.
Okay. Plenty of Republican media, like conservative media, went, okay, what about Democrats who were so supportive of rioters during the George Floyd protests? How about the lack of criticism directed towards the dude who wanted to assassinate Brett Kavanaugh?
Right.
Like, how about the people who go after pro-lifers in churches and stuff? You know, like they're the examples they tend to give, right? Now, personally, I don't think either the Kavanaugh or the George Floyd riots were condemned loudly enough by Democratic politicians. At the time, though it's condemned, but not loudly enough, in my view. But I think it's still not a valid comparison because both were criticised by Joe Biden for a start.
Yeah.
That's the first thing.
Yeah.
And that's who we're talking about here. He's making the charge. And just you need to look at the contrast of Donald Trump here.
Yeah.
Like if you want to do an actual whataboutism, let's look what Trump's doing.
Yeah.
Trump is actively promising pardons and a government apology for the January 6th
and
rioters.
Financial support.
Yeah. So even though, number one, Joe Biden did condemn these people that he's accused of not condemning.
Yeah.
Yes, some Democratic politicians, especially with the George Floyd riots, some of them were pretty quiet about them. That is true.
Yeah, I will remind you that there was a poll done in Minnesota at the height of that, saying that 2/3 of Minnesotans found it understandable that a police station had been set on fire.
Yeah, sure. I understand that at the time there were different views. I'm just saying that if you want to be black and white about it, like then fine.
Yeah.
There's a big difference though between being either a slight condemnation or saying nothing.
Yes, yeah.
And actively financially supporting
That's
issuing pardons
Yes.
and government apologies for violent people.
Yes.
That's a whole different world.
Yes.
So that's a bullshit comparison.
You have really effectively whatabouted the whatabouters.
And the second aspect is people saying, okay, you're talking about not accepting election outcomes.
Yeah.
Does anyone remember the Democrats declaring Trump an illegitimate president? Like, how about the Russiagate stuff? Or how about all that stuff? That's not accepting election outcomes. Okay, once again, I disagreed with those Democrats at the time. You will recall that.
Yes, I do.
Yes. But, and also I'll concede, those Democrats used some language in common with these Republicans, like the phrase stolen election. That is a phrase that has been used as long as I've been following politics from all sides.
Yes, yeah.
Right? Stolen election, I agree. But when the Democrats and then the Republicans before now used to use the phrase stolen election, it meant something different to what the phrase stolen election means now from Republicans. Let me just spell that out. They were complaining that the results were unfair for some reason, right? They were making subjective complaints about why they felt they were, in inverted commas, robbed.
Yeah.
It was a colloquialism.
Yes.
Right? In the same way as anyone who follows a footy team, say Michigan, for example,
Yes.
is very familiar with that concept of at the end of the game, you say, oh, the ref screwed up, one of the opposition players was dodgy, we were robbed, we should have won, right?
We never get robbed. We rob ourselves.
Okay. But those sports people aren't disputing the actual official score.
That's right.
They just think the final score was unjust.
Yes.
Right? No footy fan is saying the result was objectively different than what the official result claims.
Yes.
Right? And that is the way that people were talking about stolen elections until Trump came along.
Right, yes.
Right? But these days it means the stolen election means the result is not unfair, it's inaccurate.
Yes.
That's a very, very, very different thing.
is.
And conflating the two is wrong.
Yes.
Because they are very different. And Trump didn't just make that claim once. He's been making it non-stop for years, even after it's been addressed a million times.
Yes.
And he's not just any Republican, he's their leader.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. No Democrat leader has ever done anything like that, even for 1 second, no matter how sore a loser they are. You could argue Hillary Clinton was a bit of a sore loser. She kept on muttering about losing the election for years afterwards. She never once said, I actually got more votes in the electoral college than Donald Trump.
That's true.
Never once did she say that.
No.
Right? Even Stacey Abrams, who famously refused to concede and is not the Democrats' leader, by the way, even she accepted the actual result of the election was that she was not the winner, no matter how unjust she thought it was. And she thought it was very unjust. But still, that is a different thing. So that's what's new. That's what should be condemned.
Yes.
And it's going to be hard to put that genie back in the bottle. But there is no comparison between the two, between the Democrats and the Republicans in this case. So I just want to get that out there.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Thank you.
Yes, just can we say one more final thing on the
Yeah.
fascism point? It's a book recommendation.
Ooh.
Federico Finchelstein's book, From Fascism to Populism, where he argues that, you know, because of what happened to fascism during the Second World War, obviously it got very discredited, but right-wing populism basically became the replacement of fascism after the Second World War. That became the response to the response to the left that often questioned the value of liberal democracy. So he says it sort of morphed from fascism into populism. He argued in the Washington Post a few days ago that we may be seeing the sort of cyclical return of populism turning back into fascism. Anyway, he makes a vastly more sophisticated and subtle argument than what I have just, what I've just described there. But both the book and that article are well worth checking.
And if you're interested, you'll find that name of that book in our reading list in the blurb underneath the videos on Facebook and YouTube, where you won't find the academic paper Dave recommended in the last podcast, because indeed it was locked off.
Paywalled. But
yes.
that's okay.
That's all right. While you're reading that, I've got some listening music for you.
Stats Nugget.
Okay. This is another one where it starts off in an unsurprising area and becomes more surprising as it goes on.
Right.
With a little kicker at the end.
Okay.
A little surprising kicker. All right. US life expectancy.
Yep.
Figures came out last week.
Mm-hmm.
They dropped for the second consecutive year in 2021 from 77 to 76.1. In 2019, it was 78.9. So they've gone down basically 3 years over a 2-year period. That's the lowest life expectancy since 1996. The last comparable decrease happened in the early 1940s during the height of World War II, unsurprisingly. The worst hit people by the drop were Native Americans and Alaska Natives, who have now a life expectancy of 65. That's what American life expectancy in general was in 1944. Women are down to 79.1, men down to 73.2. That gap has grown in the last 2 years. Now, the CDC blamed COVID-19 for about half the decline in 2021.
Yep.
Other contributors were drug overdoses, heart disease, suicide, and chronic liver disease. Now, the thing that's weird about this is that America is only one of 2 countries out of the 21 wealthy peer countries they get compared to have suffered a second straight year of life expectancy drop in COVID.
Right.
Heaps of countries In fact, just about every country got a decrease in 2020.
Yes.
But then every country bar one bounced back in 2021.
Yeah.
The other one is Israel.
Right.
Now, the interesting thing about this is that this is not a new thing about America with life expectancy. There was a 2021 MBER paper that studied American life expectancy versus European life expectancy over the previous 3 decades. No surprise it's lower in America. But what is more surprising is that it's lower for everyone. Like people in the past suggested that maybe that it was because there were more poor people didn't have health insurance, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But no, the rich people in America have lower life expectancies than the rich people in Europe.
Yeah.
The white people in America have low life expectancies than the white people in Europe. The babies have lower life expectancies. The teenagers have lower life expectancies. The adults have lower life expectancies before they turn 65, right across the board. As I said, the rich die earlier. However you split it, the American equivalents die younger than their European equivalents. The reasons for that, not a surprise. America has more guns and gun violence than any other rich country. They have more drug overdose deaths than any other high-income country. They have a higher death rate from road accidents than most countries, like Canada, Australia, Japan, South Korea, Europe. They have fewer GPs per capita than most rich countries.
Yes.
They have the highest rate of avoidable deaths of any rich nation. That's not just shooting, but that's also accidents, flu, alcohol-related deaths. They're right off the chart in all of them. This is the kicker. This is a really interesting thing.
All right.
There is one group of people, though, in America who live as long or longer than just about any other group in the world, in any other country. Would you care to guess what that group of people is?
Presidents, speakers of the House of Representatives, Supreme Court justices.
Senators.
Yeah.
The answer is immigrants. Foreign-born Americans live so much longer than native-born Americans.
Yeah.
7 years longer for men and 6.2 years longer for women.
Wow.
That immigration alone, just immigration, accounted for about half of America's total life expectancy gains from 2007 to 2017.
That is very interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
Did not know that.
And I have no idea why that is, but that is a really interesting stat. That is a nugget, if you will.
That is an absolute epic of a nugget.
Yeah, there we go.
More twists and turns in that nugget than you'll ever expect to find.
It's more twists and turns than any of the books in Dave Smith's reading
right,
list.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, another thing. There's another one of those updates that we're going to keep on pulling out is the document stuff. In the last episode, Bill just informed me the news live on our podcast about Eileen Cannons' ruling for a special master.
Oh, really?
Because I'd been too busy preparing the podcast to actually read the news in the previous 5 hours. And Bill gave me, Bill said, admittedly, I'm not a lawyer, but I just want to tell you what's going on. And I thank Bill for that. But then I actually went back and did my law degree thing and actually read as much about it and then read as much of the ruling as I possibly could. I didn't get through the whole 32 pages, but I got pretty close.
Yeah.
And I want to go into a little bit of detail. I'm not going to go into too much detail because it is seriously complicated stuff.
Yes,
It really is. If you're interested, look up equitable jurisdiction online with regards to this, and there are a lot of people arguing very technically about this.
Okay.
The more technical you go, the wronger she seems, by the way, I should say. But I'm going to stick in the broad area because this is a general information podcast.
Yes.
Okay.
That should be our tagline, a general information podcast.
It's a very specific general information podcast. But anyway, okay, so just to remind you what we're talking about, Eileen Cannon, the judge, ruled to appoint a special master, which is a person whose job it is to go through everything the DOJ sees during their raid and to decide if any of that stuff falls under executive privilege or attorney-client privilege, and if so, to keep that away from the DOJ, Department of Justice. Now, that could take months. Mm-hmm. And while they're doing that, the Department of Justice is not allowed to use any of those materials as part of their investigation. Note, they can keep the investigation going.
Yes.
There's nothing stopping them continuing the investigation. They just can't use the raid materials until the special master is finished. Okay, that's her ruling. Now, we should say that for at least 2 months, they're not supposed to announce any decisions anyway because it's too close to an election.
Yes.
That's against DOJ policy. So they've got 2 months. I think it's going to take more than 2 months, but they've got 2 months. And even if the decision is awful, Eileen Cannons' decision is awful, they might not actually want to appeal it. Because if they do appeal it, it could waste even more time.
Yes.
Because the next court up is the 11th Circuit Appeals Court. 6 of the 11 judges were appointed by Trump. So, and if they want to, they don't have to rule in Eileen Cannons' favour.
No.
They can just take a real long time to rule against her.
Yes, yeah.
It's really easy for them to do that if they
Yes.
want. And no one would second guess them if they did.
No.
So it's a real risk to appeal. So they might just want to go through the special master. Because after the special master, they can just keep on as they were.
Yes.
Although obviously every day you get closer to the election, it gets harder to indict if they want to indict. Okay, first of all, do you want to give any take on the ruling before I get into the legals?
I think it's just what you would expect from a Trump-appointed justice. That's all I have to say.
Sure. Okay. Let me tell you why I think this is an odd ruling. Being generous. Once again, I'm not going to the technical side, okay? I'm just going on the broad stuff. First of all, attorney-client privilege. Now, I personally think attorney-client privilege is a reasonable concern generally.
Right.
And it's a reasonable concern in this case. I think it's huge overkill to appoint a special master for attorney-client privilege because there's only like 500 documents. It won't take long to go through them.
Yep.
I don't think it's an outrage to do that because it wouldn't take long anyway. It'd only take a few days, maybe a week or two to go through those documents.
Okay.
Right? So if it was just attorney-client privilege, I'd give it a pass personally, even though technically you probably shouldn't do it. But whatever. Now those who are listening to this go, hang on. They have a tank team. The Department of Justice have a tank team going to check exactly that kind of thing. These guys, before the DOJ got the documents, were going through it to check for attorney-client privilege. And if there was attorney-client privilege, they separated it. Now, that is true. Unfortunately, the tank team stuffed up. I'm going to quote the judge in this case, Eileen Cannon. Quote, the privilege review team's report references at least 2 instances in which members of the investigative team were exposed to material that was then delivered to the privilege review team and following another review designated as potentially privileged material. Those instances alone, even if entirely inadvertent, yield questions about the adequacy of the filter review process. And then she said that the filter review team's report does not indicate that any steps are taken after these instances of exposure to wall off the 2 tainted members of the investigation team. So that is sloppy work from the taint team. And we should acknowledge that. That is sloppy work. That's attorney-client privilege.
Right.
Now, executive privilege is where we get odd.
Okay.
Because the attorney-client privilege stuff, that would only take a couple of days, maybe a week or two. Executive privilege, that's going to take a long time to go through all that stuff. The idea of Trump asserting executive privilege against the executive makes absolutely no sense under any circumstances. The executive is not a guy. It's not a dude.
No.
It's not Trump. It's an institution.
Yes.
The documents are not Trump, the person's property. They're the property of the institution of the executive. The executive who owns those documents says Trump shouldn't have them.
Yes.
So how can Trump, who is not the executive, argue that the executive should not have those documents that are the property of the executive? That makes no sense. Nowhere is there any legal precedent for this whatsoever. Nowhere. Zero legal precedent, which she, by the way, acknowledges in her ruling. She said the Supreme Court has not ruled out the possibility of a former president overcoming an incumbent president on executive privilege matters. That's true. They haven't ruled out the possibility that Merrick Garland is a reptilian either. It never came up because it's stupid.
Well, 2022 hasn't exactly been the greatest year for precedent in the American
That is true.
Court system.
That's true.
it?
But the fact is she acknowledged that there was no precedent. But
Yeah.
she said, but they never said it. It couldn't happen.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe it could happen. So let's just act as if it might happen. That's the gist of her ruling.
Yes.
Which, that's an oddity. Oddity 1.
Okay.
Oddity 2. She didn't seem to care that Trump took so long to make his claim for a special master that the Department of Justice has already been through the documents. Recall, this process is supposed to stop the Department of Justice going through the documents.
Yes.
They've already gone through the documents.
Yeah.
Not only did Trump take 2 weeks to go for this special master, but the judge herself took 9 days of thumb-sucking before she made a ruling, and at no point in time did she stop the DOJ going through documents. If you thought you were going to make that ruling, why wouldn't you stop them going through the documents so it had a point? This has no point but to waste time.
Yep.
Oddity 2. Oddity 3. as a justification for her ruling, she fixates on a whole bunch of factors. Like, one, a lot of Trump's private stuff was swept up that he might need, like private medical stuff, whatever. Two, there have been huge numbers of leaks in this case. She fixated on that. Three, that Trump's reputation could take a huge hit by being indicted. All three items are true. They are all true. He could take a hit. There have been an outrageous number of leaks. In fact, directly after this ruling came out, there was another leak about one of the documents being potentially about the nuclear capabilities of another country.
Yes.
Okay, and then that's shit. I agree that is shit. I agree with her. But appointing a special master is not going to stop the leaks after the DOJ has already seen all the documents.
That's right.
In fact, none of those three things have anything to do with the special master. But
No.
that's what she was fixating on, rather than the actual law.
No.
Oddity 4.
By the way, I did see Trump's what is it? Trump's truth about the his medical records.
Yeah.
And he said, well, at least they'll see that I'm a perfect specimen of physical health.
He doesn't have executive privilege over his medical records. This has got nothing to do with this. Anyway, oddity 4. Even if there is executive privilege, which still makes no sense, by the way, but even if there is, there is a well-established legal precedent amongst people who do have executive privilege, which Trump does not in this case, in which executive privilege is outweighed by the documents being needed for a criminal investigation.
Yes.
Which this is.
Yes.
So even if he had executive privilege, you go, well, what about the criminal investigation? She didn't weigh into that at all. She's ignored that. All right, so that's oddity 4. Oddity 5, she made a point to note that the Presidential Records Act gives exclusive jurisdiction to the DC District Court to hear cases about presidential records. She said that.
Yes.
And then ignored it and went ahead and exercised jurisdiction anyway.
Yeah.
This is
this is very typical Trump judge stuff. Right? What characterizes it is knowing that there doesn't need to be any consistency whatsoever. It's really just sort of, as you said, it's about wasting time. Yeah.
I would argue that, I mean, look, I don't want to speak for, there are some very poor Trump judges out there, but I'm going to argue that this isn't typical Trump judge stuff because Trump has a hard-on for her in particular. And what I mean by that, so that's a horrible image.
Yeah.
what I mean by that, I don't want to think about that at all. Sorry for the visualization. But what I mean by that is that he's tried to get her before. In other cases.
Yes,
Like when he was suing Hillary Clinton for Russiagate, he tried to get her as well.
Yes.
Eileen Cannon.
Yeah.
Individually.
Yes.
Even though her court is nowhere near Mar-a-Lago.
No.
There are closer courts.
Yes.
So he's trying to handpick her over and over again for a favorable ruling. So obviously he knows that she's a particularly, shall we say, favorable judge to his cause.
Yeah.
So anyway, so look, that will probably do. Bill Barr says her ruling is faulty as well, though Bill Barr is doing weird things at the moment. He's really moving quite rapidly away from Trump.
Yes.
Andy McCarthy is not moving rapidly away from Trump. He's a super conservative legal expert who does his best to try and help out Trump when he can from a legal point of view.
Yeah.
And he says this is rubbish as well. Like I have not seen anyone who is actually a respectable legal interpreter who doesn't think this ruling is rubbish. So anyway.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say about that?
No, I think you have said it all.
Thank you. But honestly, the more technical you go, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
Like there are some really, really blatant, poor aspects of this ruling on a technical level. Anyway, before we get to the Senate races, which is something which we've really got to get into, there's one more thing. That's a
Stats nugget.
That's a stretch. The US government in the last year, it's been a year since they got out of Afghanistan, has evacuated more than 800 American citizens since they left. They've also evacuated a whole bunch of legal permanent residents as well. But a State Department report to Congress in November last year said there were 14,000 Americans abandoned at the time.
Right.
Including legal permanent residents.
Yeah.
So there's a few more than 13,000 still there in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Okay? More than 74,000 applicants who worked with the US military or government are still in the special immigrant visa pipeline as well. They're the Afghanis who worked with the allies. Okay. Each Afghan who worked with the US military applies with 4.5 family members on average.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about 300,000 people are still waiting to be processed to potentially come to America. Just 16,000 of the 74,000 remaining applicants have submitted all the required paperwork a year later. I don't think it's because they're bludgeoning.
No.
I think it's because it's complicated and hard paperwork to fill out.
Yeah.
One of the guys working with them said that it takes, on average, more than 500 days for anyone to complete the process.
Wow.
According to a survey conducted amongst those people, more than 90% say they are not living safely at the moment. More than 80% say they have received direct threats from Taliban fighters in the past month. So that's where we're at.
Yeah. It's not good.
Yeah, and we don't hear about these people at all.
No.
And this, unlike the polls, is a very objective stat.
Yes.
So anyway, so that's one more for you there. Let's talk Senate.
Yes.
Okay, so I reckon let's just go around. I think we talk governor races as well, like the big ones. Let's just talk the big ones because there's a lot of big ones, and let's just talk the state of play of all of them.
Yes.
We haven't mentioned any of these guys.
Yeah.
I'm not going to fixate too much on polling because it's bouncing around a lot at the moment.
Yes,
We're still miles out, and also polling in a lot of these states has been pathetic for the last few elections. So I don't know how much you can trust. You know, like in 2020, I'll just give you an example.
Yeah.
According to the Fox News poll, they overstated Democratic support by an average of 9.65 points in Arizona, 9.6 points in Ohio, 9.2 points in Florida, 7.1 points in Michigan, 6.5 points in Wisconsin, 6.3 points in Nevada, and 6.3 points in Pennsylvania. They're pretty critical states.
Yes, yeah.
The only state that got right was Georgia. So let's just bear that in mind. I'll refer in passing to a poll every now and then, but not very reliable at this point in time. The most interesting trend for mine so far is not polling, it's spending.
Right, yes.
Because Republicans are raising way less money than they expected to in a good year for them, theoretically. As of the end of June, okay, so this is pre-Dobbs. Dobbs happened at the end of June.
Yes.
So as of the end of June, the NRSC, that's the Senate, the Senate committee, had raised had $28.5 million in the bank.
Yes.
While the DSCC, that's the Democrat Senate group, had $53 million in the bank.
Yeah.
That's before the effect of Dobbs filtered
Yes.
through. And it's only become more so since then.
Yes.
There's a few potential reasons before I let you go.
Yeah.
Number one, Rick Scott's in charge of the NRSC.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Which some are saying that NRSC stands for National Rick Scott Committee.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he appears to be more focused on running for president than running the NRSC.
He does.
And he seems to really
God knows
screw it
why.
up.
Like, he has absolutely no chance.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
but anyway, it's nice to have dreams.
And they actually raised a lot of money way back when.
Yes.
But they have nothing in the bank because they spent it all in marketing drives that were supposed to spawn more online
exactly,
donors. And
yes.
they failed.
There was a long article about this in the Washington Post.
Yeah, go.
And how upset Republicans are with, Rick Scott's strategy, where they did raise a huge amount, but they were trying to generate more donors, but using methods that were unethical and really pissed people off. Like they would send texts. It wasn't clear who they were from, and have some outrage about Joe Biden or something. And then it would say, like, do you want to stop Joe Biden or something? Click yes to text yes. I can't remember exactly what it was, but the yes would then lead, because these were already donors who had credit cards on file, the yes would lead to an automatic deduction of $25.
So dodgy.
It was, so another measure that's often important is what percentage of people are asking for refunds. Because there's always percentages of people asking for refunds, and around 2% is a normal number, and it was above 8%. So it's like there was a pretty significant number of pissed off people. Yeah. Yes.
The Dobbs abortion ruling obviously sucked a lot of air out of the Republicans' fundraising as well. Yep. I don't need to go into that. That's pretty obvious. A big one which doesn't get mentioned much is that they're trying to suck dollars out of people with a straw. next to the world's biggest vacuum cleaner.
Exactly, yes.
Hoovering hundreds of millions of dollars out. And I'm talking about Trump here.
Yeah, exactly.
Who hoovers
How
all this
are you
money
going to
out.
compete with
Yeah,
that?
and he doesn't give it to anyone.
No,
he just
doesn't.
keeps it.
Yes.
And it's like he endorses these people in primaries and then doesn't support them financially.
Yeah.
But stops them raising money by raising money from the same people.
Yep.
So that's a big issue. The Adelsons, that tap has been turned off.
Yes, it has.
In a big way by Sheldon Adelson's tap being turned off in life.
Yes.
They donated $524 million to Republican super PACs, party members and candidates during the 2010s. In particular, in 2020, they went big. Mitch McConnell's group, the Senate Leadership Fund, raised $340 million ahead of the general election in 2020. $212 million came between August and Election Day. The Adelsons alone gave $70 million of that. So they were a third of the run towards the election. And Sheldon died. His wife has only given $5 million this election cycle.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
She probably found that on the floor of her car.
And finally, the candidates we're about to talk about are not very good, either at running or raising money. They're not politicians.
That's the thing. To put the most charitable spin on this possible, the number of novice candidates. And historically, novice candidates don't start at the Senate level. Right, you start at Congress or usually lower. Usually it's some state level office or local office or something like that. These are not people who've come up the traditional way. Now, obviously, in 2016, Trump showed that it wasn't any kind of requirement that you have to come up the traditional way, and it's not surprising that Trump spawned thousands of delusions among people who believe that they could do the same thing itself, often forgetting the fact that Trump had a celebrity cachet that went back 2 or 3 decades. That was, and a certain kind of image as well that none of them, I mean, even some of these candidates are pretty well known, like Dr. Oz, J.D. Vance, who we'll talk about, was, pretty well known in his own right. But in terms of actually appealing to voters, remember, Trump was Mr. I'm synonymous with success. Trump was the exception that proves the rule in terms of coming in as an outsider.
All you need to do to raise lots of money outside the system is to dominate every second of airtime on the media.
Right,
That's all you need to do.
Yes,
Everyone should just go and do that.
Yes, yeah. Become the face of one of the 3 major networks for 14 years.
Anyway, and also a number of those candidates are only there because Peter Thiel paid for them to be there in primaries. And now Peter Thiel isn't giving them any money.
No.
which we can, let's go to Ohio. That's a great example. You want to talk about that? Let's start in Ohio. Go for it.
Actually, and there's a lot to talk about with J.D. Vance because we didn't think much of his chances a year ago. We were wrong about that because of the fact that he was going up against these very seasoned Trump bootlickers.
Oh, they were very good at it.
And at that point, J.D. Vance, he had been an ever-Trumper at one point. And as late as 2019, I think he was describing himself as an ever-Trumper. And when we were talking last year, this was before he just underwent the all-out effort to get Trump's endorsement, including endorsing the stolen election lie. So J.D. Vance really turned it around. We were wrong about his lack of chances.
Good on you, JD.
Good on you, JD. He's a very interesting candidate because he's the candidate most closely associated with what has become known as the New Right. Now, New Right's a confusing term because it's been used so often at so many points in history. But okay, so the New Right, I suppose, is this intellectual movement that says we need to go completely beyond liberalism. That liberalism is the problem. Now, they're not just talking about it in the usual conservative sense of damn liberals, I hate them. No. They're actually talking on a much deeper level about the whole premise of a political philosophy where the individual is the fundamental political unit and everything comes back to individual flourishing as the be-all and end-all, or individual rights or individual flourishing as the be-all and end-all of political life. They're basically arguing that other older traditions need to be recovered. Now, this isn't entirely new in terms of conservatism. I mean, conservatism has always had that kind of focus on it's not just the individual. But what makes it unique in the American context is that America had actually had 4 decades of conservatism becoming very individualized, very associated with sort of economic libertarianism, the glory of free markets and consumer capitalism. I mean, this is the key thing. George W. Bush's famous, the way that we're going to beat terrorism is by going shopping. Or that you had this real sort of glorification. Consumer capitalism is what defeated communism. This is a real rejection of consumer capitalism as a meaningful life. Okay, I think that in some ways is the most significant intellectual advance that is going on in the new right. That it is rejecting something that had actually been part of the conservative vision of America for quite a few decades. And now part of that is it's sort of very of the moment, where a lot of conservatives now consider big business to be the enemy because big business has gone woke and big business is supporting woke causes, and that's part of it. But it does aspire to be something that turns away from liberalism altogether. J.D. Vance, another interesting thing about him is that he's a Catholic convert. That's very typical of your new right sort of intellectual profile. In general, in America, and I'm sure I've mentioned it before on the podcast, it is very interesting how much of the intellectual energy of the right on America comes from Catholics. And if you look at the makeup of the Supreme Court, for example, which especially on the conservative side of it is mostly Catholic, despite the fact that the dominant religious sect within American conservatism is evangelical Protestantism, that's not usually where the intellectual energy is. It's within Catholicism. And J.D. Vance says he's converted out of a sincere belief that Catholicism is right, but it also very much matches the profile of the new right intellectual. So this new right intellectualism, it's associated with figures like Curtis Yarvin, who used to blog under the name Mencius Moldbug, and he's sort of widely viewed as the kind of intellectual godfather of this. And one of the reasons why people found him so exciting a few years ago was because he was talking in very radical terms about completely reorienting away from the liberal paradigm, whether that was domestically or internationally. So the idea of a liberal international order, that's completely dead.
This is one of the few blogs I haven't read.
Maybe I think he blogs under his real name now, which is Curtis Yarvin. Yeah. Now, another salient fact about all of this is that it's funded by Peter Thiel.
Yeah.
So Peter Thiel, who was once a fairly typical Silicon Valley libertarian, has moved more towards this kind of new right conservatism, which
J.D. Vance used to work for him as well.
Which he apparently finds really fascinating. J.D. Vance was apparently really inspired by a speech that Peter Thiel gave at Yale, saying traditional career paths are just dead ends. All of those possibilities for anything exciting or meaningful in a traditional high-powered law career, which is what J.D. Vance was heading for, that's dead. That's gone. You've got to look elsewhere for meaning now. There is, of course, the supreme irony that all of these people who are complaining about the tyranny of big tech are either employed by Peter Thiel or funded by him in some way. This is, of course, founding member of PayPal, founding board member of Facebook, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, Peter Thiel has got this fascination with this new right political philosophy. My favorite little tidbit about Peter Thiel that I got from reading his Wikipedia page, but I agree with Richard Cook about the fact that Wikipedia is the best place on the internet. Yep. But it's, that Peter Thiel kind of developed his libertarian outlook when his family, who was originally from Germany, but they moved all around the place, including apartheid South Africa and apartheid-supported Namibia in the 1970s. And that was where he developed his sort of rebellion against authoritarianism. And you might read that and think, oh, yeah, because, apartheid was so obviously wrong. It's like, no, it's because he went to a boarding school where he was forced to wear a school uniform. They forced him, Peter Thiel, to wear a school uniform. That's what turned him into an anti-authoritarian.
I'm on board with Peter Thiel in that respect. I never wore a tie at school.
You never wore a tie?
I just racked up detentions all through high school because I just refused to wear a tie.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're like the Nelson Mandela of not wearing a tie at one of Sydney's most prestigious schools.
That is exactly what I am, and that is going to be one of the titles of this podcast.
Yes. Yes.
I love that.
Now,
okay, anyway, I'm with him on that.
Okay, I think that it's fair to say Peter Thiel, or at least the candidates that Peter Thiel funds, have drifted away from what you'd call anti-authoritarianism. I think
fair to say.
Now what you're seeing is people like J.D. Vance promoting a far more positive vision of authoritarianism.
Yeah.
Now, J.D. Vance has certainly really moved intellectually as well. So Hillbilly Elegy, for those of you who haven't read it, his major point was that poverty in Appalachia is a problem of culture. He says it's not the other way around. It's not that economic poverty leads to pathological cultures. He says it is that the culture is the problem in Appalachia. That's what keeps people mired in poverty, which is, it's funny, that's not exactly a populist message.
No.
That's actually, I would call it a victim-blaming message. And I tend to believe it's the other way around. But anyway, he lays this argument out at length, and where I actually stopped reading the book, I was already about 90% of the way through, when he speaks very vigorously in defense of the payday loan industry in Appalachia. I don't know if he would be defending that anymore with the kind of stances that he's taking. But anyway, he, in his New Right Intellectual Revolution, and I think that this is
Revolution.
And remember, this is a guy who made his name by writing a book that liberals loved.
Yeah.
Liberals loved Hillbilly Elegy. Way more liberals ever read that book than conservatives. This was at a time when liberals were looking for someone to explain the heart and mind of Trump voters, and they found it in J.D. Vance. So he got a lot of acclaim from liberals, and it seems to me that he's now basically just trying to decisively shake off that part of his past. He does not want to appeal to liberals anymore, and he makes a big point of, you pay a price by no longer towing the liberal line, but I'm all the happier for it.
Yeah, he tries to troll liberals as well.
He does. Yeah. He absolutely does. And, but it's really fairly simple electoral calculus on his part, whatever intellectual journey has taken place. But now he has the most sort of fully developed theory of what Trump should do, or what Republicans should do if they get into power, is basically fire every civil servant. He says elections cannot uproot this political class, which, that is coming a little bit back to that kind of, the country has gone so far to the left that you can't trust liberal democratic processes anymore. So it's like, if we ever take power again, we've basically got to fire every civil servant in the country.
There is a lot of Republicans who are saying that now. I think they're going to do it.
Yeah, if they can, they certainly will.
Trump tried to do it.
Yeah,
at the very end of his first administration, his administration, he tried to do that, and then he wrote the executive order, and then Biden got rid of it.
Yeah.
But they wanted to basically make a much I don't have the numbers in my head, but a much larger number of civil servants fireable.
Yes,
and to just go through them.
Yeah.
Which of course will make the entire government much more political.
And they're absolutely trying to develop a legal strategy for this. So, so Vance, I think another figure that is worth looking at alongside of J.D. Vance to understand where conservatives, at least of this bent, have gone intellectually, is Rod Dreher. Yes. So Rod Dreher is this conservative, very religious writer.
That is a blog I read.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. His blogs are like the longest blogs.
They're so long.
Yes. Yeah.
Edit.
No, he's got no editor. And so in 2016, or was it 2017, Dreher wrote a book called The Benedict Option, which was an argument that there was actually no point in fighting culture wars for religious conservatives because the culture is lost. That was the argument. Culture wars as they are formatted, conservatives never win them. His argument was...
And he's a very, very, very conservative social conservative.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. His argument was conservative religious people basically have to create their own communities where they can live as conservative religious people in opposition to a hostile culture.
Yeah, just wait out the time.
Yeah, it's not necessarily about, creating intentional communities, but within society, he has all these things that you should do, like live within walking distance of a church, homeschool your children, start these community organizations. But it's quite an interesting book.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
if you are interested in the viewpoint of social conservatives,
Yeah.
I would actually recommend that blog. And
Yeah,
and the reason for that is because he is rare. He's a rare person in the political space in that he's actually consistent.
Yeah.
Like he follows through.
Yeah.
He follows through in really, really unfortunate places.
Yeah. Although
because of that consistency.
some of that consistency has slipped, though. Right.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
In
interesting.
2017, he hated Trump.
He still hates Trump.
No.
Oh, no.
I think,
Dude, I read him every day.
I think he's drifted. It's in that book, he's saying too many Republican politicians basically bowed to Caesar.
Yeah.
But his view, and he says, Christians should not be seeking political power. You can't achieve a Christian society through political power. What's happened since then is, like a lot of conservatives, he has fallen in love with Viktor Orban.
Yeah. Oh, he loves Viktor Orban.
Viktor Orban keeps bringing him over to Hungary. Every time he goes over there, he gets more enamored with Viktor Orban.
Orban's his hero.
He's become convinced that actually Christians can use state power to create an order that is amenable to them and hostile to their enemies instead. Right? So he really likes that. He seems to think that Ron DeSantis is probably the candidate with the best chance of doing that. He's the Floridian. Orban, although J.D. Vance is his absolute favorite politician, personal friend of his. But no, he is not as hostile to Trump as he used to be.
Well,
Like he went from he actually went as far as, I think, voting for Trump in 2020, and he's basically said, Trump is just Trump. After the Dobbs decision, he said, I've never been more grateful to be more wrong about a politician because Trump is the one who brought the end of Roe versus Wade.
But I don't want to get bogged down in Rod Dreher here. This
is the podcast where we get bogged down in arguing about Rod Dreher.
But when he was and what you're saying is correct. When you're saying he was wrong, he was saying that he didn't think Trump would do anything about judges. He thought Trump was lying.
Yes.
Right. Whereas he said I was wrong about that. Yeah. Like he gratefully accepts the changes that Trump made that suit him.
Yeah.
But he's always hated Trump, and he still hates Trump. And he, as you say, he's a huge DeSantis person.
Yes.
Like massive DeSantis person.
yeah.
And he, like on the documents and stuff, he's like Bill Barr. Like he definitely calls Trump out.
Yes.
For the things that you should call Trump out for. And in January 6th, he's disgusted about and all the rest of it. But he's of the view, as you said, that the entire world is against him and his people.
Yes.
And he'll take any victory he can get wherever he can get it.
Yes, that's right.
But at the same time, he wishes he could take that victory
I'll
from
defer
someone
to
other
you
than
because you clearly read his blog
I do.
a lot more than me. I do find it very difficult to get to the end of his posts.
If it's not obvious, I am not a social conservative by any stretch of the imagination, but I like to know what they think. And he's a good conduit for that.
Yeah. And the Benedict option is a good book for that. It's about the length of one of his blog posts. But anyway, I find him quite a good window into the into this world. Now, my final sort of thoughts on the new right are, even though there are some new things in terms of the American context about this turn away from consumer capitalism, it's actually not that new. Like it's going back to older currents in conservatism. The question is, why is this so intellectually appealing now? Ross Douthat in the New York Times argued that it was particularly well equipped as a response to certain crises that are going on in American life at the moment. And he mentioned everything from the shock of how powerful China has become to internet porn addiction. He says that the new right is particularly well equipped to deal with that. I'm not so convinced by that. My sort of analysis of this is that traditionally there have been three pillars of conservatism in the US, at least since the Second World War, which is militarism, veneration of free markets, and social conservatism. two of those pillars have been very badly damaged over the last 20 years. The Iraq and Afghanistan wars really just all, they didn't completely remove it, but they really undercut that sort of pillar of militarism and glorification of militarism. The GFC, that impact took a little bit longer, but now you'll just find no Republican politician goes out as hard and as gleefully in favor of free markets as they used to. And so I think that, and also that it's just turned out to be an electoral failure. Basically, Romney Ryan was the glorification of markets election, and they got their asses handed to them. So I think that's my take on it. It's like, basically, after 22 years of the 21st century, social conservatism is the only one that hasn't been completely undermined yet.
Yep, I think.
But who knows? Dobbs could do that.
Well, actually, by contrast to what you were just talking about with the messages of the many conflicting messages of J.D. Vance,
yes,
I think one of his major problems is he's got no message at all because he's the laziest campaigner on earth.
Oh, this has been the remarkable thing. I was not expecting this.
It's like he was inspired by Biden 2020.
Yeah.
Except for he's not 80 years old.
I thought that, I thought he was going to take the Trump approach but very few people enjoy campaigning as much as Trump actually does. For Trump, it was the best part of the job. For Vance, it's clearly not. It's amazing. He got the nomination and then basically disappeared.
Yeah, he doesn't do anything. Doesn't do any events, and he's not advertising because he has no money. He actually spent.
Yeah,
he spent as of like a week ago $400,000 on ads so far, whereas Tim Ryan, his competitor, who we'll talk about in a second, has raised $22 million. Has raised $22 million so far. Sorry, spent $22 million so far. Now, Big Daddy Mitch McConnell's swooped in with $28 million. He's dropping on the race.
Yes, yeah.
Because Peter Thiel is dropping zero.
Yes, yeah.
I
kind of get the impression that Peter Thiel has a short attention span.
Maybe.
Maybe
he thinks it's just a bad investment.
He's a bit like Toad in The Wind in the Willows. He sort of gets into these very expensive hobbies and then drops them really quickly.
Very interesting comparison.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, by the way, that Mitch McConnell's swooping in because Vance was quite the opponent of Mitch McConnell before.
Yeah.
But Mitch McConnell's going to buy him. And if Vance wins, which he probably will, we'll get to the numbers in a second.
Yes, yeah.
When Vance probably will win if Mitch McConnell's going to enjoy owning him against Trump. And Mitch McConnell's doing this a lot. He's taking Trump people and paying for their campaign because Trump isn't. He's going to own them, which is a clever thing to do. But anyway, the reason why I think he's going to, I should say, by the way, that this should be a walk-up start for Vance.
It absolutely should
Trump won Ohio by 8 points. Mike DeWine is running at the same time for governor. He's the current governor.
Yeah.
He's ahead by 15 points.
Yes.
He has huge coattails.
Yeah.
So J.D. Vance should do this easily, but he's pathetic. That's part of the problem. But also Tim Ryan is a good politician.
He is a good politician.
He's the centrist Democrat that he's running against. Tim Ryan's basically lassoed himself to Trump, essentially, like as much as he can as a Democrat. He says he supports Trump's renegotiation of NAFTA. He backed his defense budget. He backed the Space Force. He backed the tariffs on China. He goes on about this stuff endlessly.
Yeah.
He opposed Biden's student loan forgiveness.
He did.
He never mentions anything culture war related at all.
Yes, yeah.
Although he does sort of sotto voce. If someone asks him, he goes, "Yeah, I'll support abortion laws."
Yeah.
but he never talks about it if he can avoid it.
Yeah.
So he's running as close to a populist Republican as you possibly can while still being a Democrat.
Yeah. No, and all that stuff that you were talking about, that he, with the exception of student loan forgiveness, all of those Trump positions, they're things that don't piss Democrats off. The renegotiation of NAFTA, which one of the most significant things was it was renamed USMC.
Yes.
This is things like that enlarged the quota of dairy products that the US was able to sell to Canada. In the end, it was a fairly non-controversial thing. China, as we've talked about, has been one of the most bipartisan areas of foreign policy for a long time. So it is the strategy of tying himself to Trump's position in those things is also a strategy of not pissing Democrats off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so basically, Vance should be pissing in their head at the moment. But in reality, the polls are jiggling around between it being dead even and him being ahead by about 5.
Yeah.
So a narrow victory at this point in time. We'll see what happens.
Yes.
But it shouldn't be close at all. Having said that, this is a free hit for Democrats because it's currently occupied by a Republican. That's Rob Portman retiring.
Yeah.
So if they
if Vance loses this, then that would be a sign that there's. But sorry, I have really messed up the expression of this. I would see it as more likely that Democrats would take the House than that Vance would.
Gotcha.
The Vance would lose a high. So if Vance is losing this, then that might be a night when Democrats are actually taking the House, and I don't think that we're at that point.
No, I don't think so either. Do you have anything else to say about Ohio before we move on?
No.
Okay, let's talk about the other Peter Thiel special in Arizona.
Oh God.
Okay, do you want to start off on Blake Masters?
Well, let's put it this way: there's only so many sort of intellectual vanguard leaders of the new right that are out there. In fact, there's only one. And Peter Thiel had to spend some of his money on someone else, so he chose Blake Masters.
Who also worked for him.
Who also did work for him.
It doesn't look very far, Peter Thiel, those candidates.
Yeah. I don't think that Blake Masters wrote any New York Times best-selling books, did he?
No.
I don't think that the Blake Masters wrote any books that liberals adored misguidedly as, this is what explains the Trump voters. It's those terrible culture people in Appalachia. No. I don't think that Blake Masters has had any personal intellectual journey. I don't think that Blake Masters has converted to any religion out of a conviction that he's right.
Actually, I disagree with the second last bit about him not undertaking a personal intellectual journey.
Really?
He has through everything. Blake Masters says whatever he thinks you want to hear at any given moment. Like back in university, he was a dickhead libertarian.
Okay.
And he became like a Ron Paul guy, and he was a military guy at one point in time.
Oh, right, yeah.
And now he's a populist. And he just says whatever he feels he needs to say to get along. In fact, my view on Blake Masters, even though people talk about him like he's some crazy guy, like they talk about him like he's one of those really way out Trumpist loons. He says a lot of way out Trumpist loon things, but I think that's because he thinks that's how to get elected. Yes. My take on him is that he's the Joe Biden of MAGA, in that he's just a politician who has no actual convictions of his own. And we'll just say wherever like Joe Biden has held every position on earth over the last 40 years.
Yes.
He basically ends up exactly in the middle of the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
Wherever their position is, that's Joe Biden's position. And it will change. While the Democrats have been moving quite left in the last 4 or 5 years, Joe Biden's positions have moved quite left in the last 4 or 5 years. He just goes with them. And Blake Masters, I think, is exactly the same. I think he's just a politician.
Okay.
And at the moment, he's trying to sound like a crazy populist because he thinks that's how you win in Arizona.
Has Blake Masters held office before?
No.
Okay.
No, he just
he's another one of these, yes.
Yeah. Now the funding dispute I talked about before about Peter Thiel is really crunching on Blake Masters because Peter Thiel has dropped him dead as well.
Yeah.
But Mitch McConnell is refusing to pick up the tab.
Oh, no.
So at the moment, he's just got a few $1 million from Mitch's pack, and that's it. And he's been way outspent by Mark Kelly, the glamour astronaut, who is the incumbent in that particular seat. And that's making life very tough for Blake Masters. What's making life... by the way, Thiel spent over $10 million on the primary campaign.
Yeah.
But spent zero on the general election campaign.
Hey, has there been an astronaut in Congress since John Glenn?
I don't know.
John Glenn was in Congress, wasn't he?
He was.
Yes.
I don't know.
That's some homework, Peppers.
Should be our homework.
What other? Okay.
Doing our homework for us.
There must be a Wikipedia page. Astronauts in Congress.
There probably is.
Yeah.
Anyway, Blake, that's the first problem with Blake Masters. He's got no money and he's got no apparent convictions. Another thing is he has a real long track record of shooting his mouth off.
Right.
And there is clip after clip after clip doing around. So let me give you a couple of examples.
How old is he, by the way?
He's like 36. He's young.
Yeah, I was going to say, the archive can't be that big.
Well, let me give you a few examples.
All right.
So you're talking about populism and the new right and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Get a load of this. This was him speaking to FreedomWorks quite recently.
FreedomWorks.
FreedomWorks is not new right populist.
No.
And this is what he had to say to them.
That was Dick Armey's group, wasn't it?
Yeah, like these guys are like, Tea Party.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is what he had to say to them.
We got to cut the knot at some point, though, because I'll tell you what, I'm not going to receive Social Security, right? I'm a millennial. But my kids, they're not going to receive Social Security, and we need fresh and innovative thinking, right? Maybe we should privatize Social Security, right? Private retirement accounts, get the government out of it.
Privatizing Social Security. That's fresh and innovative.
It is, and really dumb, because now the Democrats are running this ad nonstop.
What do we know about Blake Masters? Watch for yourself.
Maybe we should privatize Social Security, right? Private retirement accounts.
That's right. Masters would cut taxes for billionaires, and to pay for it, he wanted to cut our Social Security and privatize it, gambling our life savings on the stock market. And Masters saw nothing wrong with it.
Right, we got to cut the knot at some point.
It's time we cut the knot on Blake Masters.
Etc. And by the way, his job for Peter Thiel, he was like a venture capitalist financial type.
Yes.
So they're tying that right in there.
Vulture capitalism.
Here he comes, financial guy trying to gamble your retirement savings on the stock market, etc. So that's not going real well for him.
Yes.
Now, I should say, he during this campaign, he's completely disavowed that and saying that I was taking out of context.
No, you weren't taking
he
that.
totally was not
But
taking
this
out of context.
this is what I was talking about that kind of free market veneration. That basically ended with the 2012 election.
Yeah.
Yeah, that it just doesn't work for them anymore.
Well,
what year was that?
That was way after 2012. He's 38. That was like 2 years ago.
And another thing, this new right talks about a lot now. Sorry to go back to them.
Yeah.
But,
you love the new right.
But like Sohrab Ahmari even went so far as to say we need to be social democratic. Now that's just Ahmari being ignorant of the history of the welfare state. What he's really talking about is there have been Bismarckian conservative versions of the welfare state that are aimed at family growth. Okay, that's the kind of welfare state that they want. So they actually do want a fairly extensive welfare state, which includes Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security, but also all of these other kinds of incentives to encourage family growth. I've heard it expressed as they want it so that people can survive off one income, to encourage traditional family structures with large families. So that is not a social democratic welfare state, but that is a very traditional conservative natalist welfare state. So yes, they are all about that now.
Well, talking about traditional conservative natalist positions.
Yes.
Even worse.
Yes.
For Blake Masters and his social security jumping around.
Yeah.
Is jumping around on abortion.
Oh,
which is not the issue to be jumping around on.
No, that is
in
not
2022.
Not the issue. Yes.
This was his position before Dobbs.
There's a genocide happening in America. Under Roe v. Wade, the federal government recognizes a right to kill babies in the womb. And so every year, hundreds of thousands of young lives are destroyed. 30% of black babies are aborted in this country. We're talking 20 million babies since 1973. We got to get back to not killing babies. That starts with overturning Roe.
I particularly like the heartbeat throughout.
Yes,
I think that's a heartbeat of a fetus, but maybe in the background. I'm not sure. Then Dobbs passed, and all of a sudden that position of talking about a genocide with abortion and we got to stop killing babies became a lot less popular.
Yes.
So now his position on abortion, it's a little bit different.
Look, I support a ban on very late term and partial birth abortion. And most Americans agree with that. That would just put us on par with other civilized nations. Mark Kelly, the only countries that support his no limits extreme abortion policies are China and North Korea.
Okay, so now he only supports partial birth abortion bans and very late term abortion bans, which is surprisingly exactly where the polling suggests he should be.
And by the way, just to come back to the new right one more time, one of the reasons why they're very big on a pro-natalist welfare state is because they realise that politically it would be impossible to have abortion bans without a pretty extensive welfare state. That if you're going to ban people from getting abortions, you cannot throw them into the current state of American society where poor people in particular where it's so difficult for them to actually look after and raise children because of the total lack of a safety net and the appalling state of American healthcare. So part of why they're promoting a big welfare state is to make abortion bans possible. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, in this case, he doesn't support an abortion ban anymore.
He doesn't.
Just for partial birth abortion and for very, very late term abortions. He had to scrub his entire website because of this, because it was just plastered with pro-life slogans he had to take off. He had to stop saying he was 100% pro-life. He stopped saying he supported a federal personhood law that recognizes that unborn babies are human beings that may not be killed. And he's now got all this wishy-washy stuff all over his website. That got so much publicity in Ohio when he did that.
Yeah.
Like, it was just so ham-fisted. So anyway, so that's not working out well for him. He's somewhere between 5 and 10 points behind in Arizona. So not Ohio, Arizona. Also, someone's been leaking a steady stream of emails and board posts from him when he was in college.
Oh, God.
This was topical. He declared the United States government is fascist in 2006. He didn't think America should have gone into World War I or World War II.
Oh, he was one of those. Okay, so he really went down the Ron Paul rabbit hole.
He referred to the Unabomber as, quote, an underrated thinker. He ended this is not a position, this is just how much of a dickhead he was. He ended the post with this. I love this quote. I don't mean any disrespect, but it takes years to understand where I'm coming from, let alone agree or disagree. To expect not to receive the usual, intelligent perhaps, but still typical, objections and questions in response to a post such as mine above, it would be silly. I don't know what gave me the urge to try. That gives you an idea of what Black Masters is like as a human being. Anyway, not working for him at the moment. And Mark Kelly is, while he's a pretty doctrinaire Democrat, he's very good at appearing very inoffensive. And he's a hero, or he's an astronaut, whatever. He's not gonna piss people off like Blake Masters is. So I think Blake Masters might be in a bit of trouble.
Yeah.
Do you want to say anything about Carrie Lake, for governor, or not?
I mean, we talked about her last week.
She's very Trumpist. Yeah, I think that she's DeSantis' biggest threat personally going forward, at least at the moment. I should just say this: that Carrie Lake for governor and the Arizona Attorney General candidate and Secretary of State from Republicans, all three of them are Stop the Steal types.
Yes.
If they win, and they are all basically dead even. At the moment. If they win, the Arizona legislature can go really nutty.
Yes, yeah.
Like really nutty. They tried to pass a bill last year that gave them the power to reject any election result that they didn't like. Yeah. Like to just completely nullify an election.
Yes.
Like for no reason. They don't have to say fraud or anything. They just say, we don't like it.
Yeah.
They tried to do that. They can do that if these three all win. And it's 50-50.
Yeah.
So that's a really, really, really important election, that one there, because Arizona is a pretty key state.
Yes.
So do you have anything else to say about Arizona before that?
No. Other than the fact that it is just clearly so closely balanced.
Yeah.
Politically.
Apart from Blake Masters.
Arizona now is what Florida was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Should we go to Georgia?
Yes.
Okay, so this is where we got this year's buffoon. There's always one buffoon. This year's buffoon is Herschel Walker.
Oh, my God.
But this, by the way, is 50-50 as well. This is really close.
Yes.
Herschel Walker, for those who don't know, is an ex-footballer. He's Trump's good buddy.
Yes, he was one of the greatest college players of all time for the University of Georgia.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's got quite a history. He allegedly held a gun to his ex-wife's head and said, quote, "I'm going to blow your fucking brains out." He's condemned black fathers who leave their family repeatedly, and then it turned out he had 3 secret love children that he'd abandoned. 3. They came out one at a time. Before he started running, he hadn't lived in Georgia for decades.
Yes.
And probably his biggest problem is that he is an incredible moron.
Yeah.
It's a huge problem. He says incredible things. Like he's a fabulist as well. He said that he graduated in the top 1% of his college, but he didn't graduate at all.
Yes.
And people should know
that. He was
that.
in the top 1% of football of all time.
Yeah, people know he didn't graduate because, as you said, he was this massive college footballer. They knew he left college to be a pro footballer.
Yes.
He still lied anyway about how he graduated. This is his theory of evolution.
I'll tell you something else I heard, and I think about this, because at one time, science said man came from apes. Did it not? That's when you go to the science.
Every time I read or hear that, I think to myself, you just didn't read the same Bible I did.
Well, this was interesting, though. if that is true, why are there still apes? Think about it.
You know, now you're getting too smart for us.
No. Think about this. We have an evolution we've gotten so intelligent that if that is true, why are there still apes?
He loves that point.
I love that point too.
So that's his theory on evolution. This is why he's not interested in the Green New Deal. I won't play you the quote because it's very hard to hear over all this. But I'll just read you the quote. Since we don't control the air, our good air decided to float over to China's bad air. So when China gets our good air, their bad air got to move. So it moves over to our good airspace. Then now we got to clean that back up while they're messing ours up. That's why he's not in favor of the environment.
Yeah.
Environmental laws. And then there's also his plan to solve school shootings. I'm not sure you know this one.
No, I don't.
Basically, he wants to stop the person wielding the weapon. Let them explain in a bit more detail.
See, that it's a person wielding that weapon. You know, Cain killed Abel. And that's the problem that we have. And I said, what we need to do is look into how we can stop those things. You know, he talked about doing a disinformation. What about getting a department that can look at young men that's looking at women, that's looking at just social media? What about doing that, looking into things like that, and we can stop that way?
What about that?
I can't believe no one hasn't suggested that before. Such a great solution.
It's worth noting about Herschel. No, I've got to admit, I have not been paying a lot of attention to Herschel Walker, but
they're dead even, man. They're dead even with Ralph Warnock.
He had Trump's endorsement really, really early, like for years.
Well, they're great mates.
Yeah. From the moment that it was evident that Herschel Walker was going to run,
loyalty is all that matters. With
he has had Trump's endorsement, and that's what got him through the primary. This is another one of these races where you would expect that Republicans would win it easily, even though Warnock won it last time around. Obviously, those were pretty extraordinary circumstances.
Well, Kemp is winning by an absolute landslide against Stacey Abrams. So once again, there's coattails there that Walker should be riding on.
Yes.
And also Mitch has come to the rescue here as well. He's dropped $37 million in that.
Yes.
In that state as well.
Yeah.
So, by the way, I should say, I'm not a big fan of Raphael Warnock either. Like, he's not Herschel Walker.
No.
But like, for instance, the guy receives a $120,000 allowance as a pastor for a church on top of his Senate wage of $174,000, and you're not allowed to receive more than $26,000 of outside income. How does he do that? He's declared it as a housing allowance, which is just bullshit. It's just corrupt. But anyway, he's not Herschel Walker.
Yeah.
It was like if Warnock was running against JD Vance or something, I might be torn. But against Herschel
Walker, yeah.
That guy should not
Why
be anywhere
are
near
there
the
still
Senate.
apes? Answer me that question.
Anyway, do you have anything else to say about Georgia?
No.
Okay. All right. I'm just looking at the time.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania, we can't miss out Pennsylvania.
No, of course not.
Okay. Well, let's start with Mastriano versus Josh Shapiro for Attorney General, because Mastriano is the Trumpiest Trumpy.
Yes.
Like, he's literally... He was
No, that's for governor, isn't it?
Yeah, he's for governor.
Yes,
he's for governor. He's a state senator, Republican state senator, former colonel. He was literally outside the Capitol when the rioters broke in.
He was there. Yes.
Yeah, he was actually there.
Yeah.
And he also helped lead the state efforts to overturn the election. Like,
yes.
He personally tried to organize an alternative set of electoral college electors.
Yes, and he was another one of the candidates that Democrats tacitly backed. Yeah, that they ran ads during the primaries saying, he's too conservative for Pennsylvania.
And he's a dude that likes Confederates, even though he's not from a Confederate state, which is weird.
This was, it was a state where significant Civil War battles took place.
Yeah.
So could have become a Confederate state, potentially had the war gone the other way. But yeah, he is the epitome of that kind of creepy northern fetish for the Confederacy.
I should say that the reason I bring him up is because it's, if he wins the governorship, because of Pennsylvania law, he can appoint the Secretary of State.
Yes.
And then 2024 shenanigans can really happen.
Yeah.
He said he's already got in mind the perfect candidate, but he won't say who that is. The fact he won't say who it is, I think speaks volumes.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty key race as well. I don't have much else to say about that, to be honest. Like I've been focusing more on the Oz versus Fetterman race. Do you have anything else to say about Mastriano before we go to Oz and Fetterman?
No.
Why don't you talk about Oz and Fetterman? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so Dr. Oz, I don't know how well he is known to our audience, but
He's on Oprah in Australia.
Yeah. So it's sort of, it's not Trump level celebrity. It's more of a sort of subcultural celebrity, but pretty.
Poor man's Dr. Phil.
Yeah, but pretty well known, and didn't have much of a political identity until recently. Now that kind of celebrity, I would say, is it is quite an important asset in a political race, but it's not that sort of Trump level celebrity. Now, Fetterman himself is also something of a celebrity because he was this very young mayor of a town that was absolutely devastated by coal mine closures. And there was a period when he became this kind of symbol during the Obama presidency of like rebuilding these communities. So he got a lot of accolades for how he had rebuilt this community. And I remember there was a national advertising campaign. I can't even remember what it was for, but it was featuring sometime in the 2000s or early 2010s or something, featuring John Fetterman as this guy who could get things done. This example of Americans recovering from everything that had been thrown at them and getting things done. I just remember that ad had a jazz version of hi ho, it's off to work we go in it. So you can probably find that on YouTube. But anyway, the point is John Fetterman has been a kind of a celebrity, more so within Pennsylvania, but kind of within the US for a while anyway as well. Not Dr. Oz level of celebrity, certainly not Trump level of celebrity, but nonetheless. And certainly for a while he's been seen as, in that constant quest for what kind of Democrat can bring back blue-collar workers. Tim Ryan is an example of one. Sherrod Brown is an example of one. People are looking at Fetterman as the next Sherrod Brown. But Fetterman's race was pretty significantly marred by having a stroke.
Yeah, it's become about the stroke.
Yeah.
100% about the stroke.
Under normal circumstances, that would be the end of somebody's campaign.
Yeah, he would.
That would be the end of somebody's chances. Like, people do not like voting for people that they see as sick or infirm. This is why so much of the Trump-Biden race was about accusation and counter-accusation of infirmity.
I should say, just to talk about the stroke, because that is the major, definitely, story of this campaign. Before that, he was streaking away from Dr. Oz because Republicans didn't like Dr. Oz.
Yes.
He was only there because Trump supported him, essentially. Yep. And I assume Trump supported him because either he's a mate or just a celebrity factor. I don't know. But Dr. Oz was not really a Republican.
No.
He was very pro-choice. He had a whole bunch of things, and then he just changed all his positions.
Yeah.
And they didn't trust him. There was an AARP poll like a month ago that found Oz's favorability amongst Republicans was 53-38.
Yeah.
Which is not very good.
That's not very good
They
at
don't
all.
trust him at all, right? Amongst Pennsylvania Republicans. And no one really liked him. He had 30% favorability until quite recently in the general public in Pennsylvania. And Fetterman was just smashing him by double digits.
Yes.
But the stroke has now become an issue and the main reason is because Fetterman's recovery has been slow.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so now you've got people basically we've seen this play before.
Yeah.
We saw it with Biden, we saw it with Clinton.
Yeah.
Where there's this steady drip of clips.
Yes.
Designed to make him look as incompetent as possible. And then people going, oh, it's such a shame about his health. Oh, now Dr. Oz's campaign has actually been really nasty about it. Like there was a famous exchange where Dr. Oz put out this campaign video talking about how expensive veggie trays are, and he called them crudité. And then Fetterman then made fun of that, going, we call crudité veggie trays here, and he held up one of them. And then Dr. Oz's campaign responded with, quote, if John Fetterman had ever eaten a vegetable in his life, then maybe he wouldn't have had a major stroke and wouldn't be in the position of having to lie about it constantly.
Oh, God.
That's the kind of thermonuclear.
Yes,
and they've been doing this for the last month. They've been really nasty.
Yeah.
And literally, they put out quotes like, "Can you quote someone? Can you quote the laughing emoji in response to something Fetterman says and stuff like that?" They're just being real assholes about it.
Yeah.
And they're trolling him about not doing debates because the Dr. Oz will make these concessions for you and patronizing way. It's been really nasty about it. But the thing is that some of those videos are really starting to get around. This is the one which I saw from Labor Day, which is, unlike most of those videos, doesn't have 50 cuts in it. Like they often do, with lots and lots of cuts. But this one was just uncut. And you can see that he's still far from at his best.
Yes.
Please understand the stakes in this race. Send me to Washington, D.C. so I can work with Senator Casey and I can champion the union way of life in D.C. Thank you very much, and it's an honor. I live 8 minutes away from here, and when I leave tonight, I got 3 miles away, Dr. Oz in his mansion in New Jersey. You've got a friend and you have an ally. Send me to Washington, D.C. Thank you very much. Thank you, Steelworkers.
So as you can see, he hasn't fully recovered, clearly.
No.
And the big issue has become, is he going to have a debate? And Dr. Oz is basically taunting him constantly, or his campaign is taunting him constantly about having a debate. Yesterday, he finally said yes.
Right.
We are going to have a debate. Didn't say when. He said it'll be on a major network sometime in October. And that, I think, is going to possibly determine the race, because there's going to be so much. This is going to build up and build up and build up. It's such a big issue, becoming whether he's actually competent to be a senator. And if he screws up that debate, then that might be all she wrote, because it's getting closer. He's still ahead by like 4 or 5 points, but it's closing up. It used to be double digits. If he does well if he just holds his own in the debate, then I think people will just go, "Fuck off, Dr. Oz, we hate you." And that will be it. But what is your thoughts?
Look, not much more about it other than that it is sad. What's happened to him, but
there is. I mean, doctors have spoken about this quite a lot. You would be unsurprised to hear.
Yes,
and they say, it is a long journey to recover.
You
would expect him to improve over time.
Yes,
but strokes are unpredictable. Sometimes they don't improve. So it is a really interesting. By the way, Trump's lent that Trump touch at a rally recently. He said, quote, "Fetterman supports taxpayer-funded drug dens and the complete decriminalization of illegal drugs, including heroin, cocaine, crystal meth, and ultra-lethal fentanyl. By the way, he takes them himself," which was interesting. Like, Fetterman's like, sorry?
Yeah.
I don't take any of those drugs. What are you talking about? It's a really interesting little departure from Trump there. But anyway, thanks for that, Trump. I don't really have anything else to add on that race. Do you have anything else?
No.
Okay. All right. Florida, DeSantis, Crist. This is kind of the opposite of all the other races, because as of August 19, Crist had $1 million on hand.
Yeah.
And DeSantis has $132 million on hand.
Wow.
He's up by 6 or 7 points already. Crist is a strange character.
He's a very strange character.
He's been Republican. He's been independent. He's now a Democrat.
He's been a former Republican governor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When he won the primary, this was the message. And he was asked what message he had for DeSantis supporters.
Yeah.
This was his message.
Those who support the governor should stay with him and vote for him, and I don't want your vote. If you have that hate in your heart, keep it there. I want the vote of the people of Florida who care about our state. Good Democrats, good independents, good Republicans. Unify with this ticket.
That's a strange message for supporters of a candidate who has more than 50% support. It's hard to win if you tell the people who are in the majority to not support you.
Yeah.
He's an interesting character. He is, however, a bit of a glad handler. He's a bit of an old school politician.
Yes,
So they reckon he might be a good retail campaign. I should also say this is the weirdest decision of all. He picked as his running mate the president of the Miami Teachers Union,
Oh, yes.
When DeSantis' entire campaign is centered around COVID.
Yes.
Like
yeah.
DeSantis loves talking about the fact he kept the schools open. He
Yes,
sees
yeah,
that
yeah.
as his great success. All his ads are these sort of misty, kind of gauzy, kind of
Yeah, yeah.
soft focus ads of people saying, thank you for keeping the schools open.
Mm.
And then Krista's picked the head of the Miami teachers union who wanted to keep them closed for longer.
Yeah.
So he's almost leaning into this issue,
Yes, he
which
is. Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't understand at all. But yeah, anyway, that's what it is. I don't think he's going to win, Chris.
No, so what do you, I mean, I haven't seen any polls from Florida
DeSantis
recently.
is about it's somewhere between 52 and 56%.
Right.
Polls.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's winning comfortably. He's not
Yes.
and not smashing.
No, he's not.
but he's still got $132 million to spend.
Yes, yes.
So we'll see about that. And then in the Senate, there's Val Demings versus Rubio, which Rubio is kind of comfortably winning, to be honest. He's
Yeah.
ahead by about 5-6 points.
Yes.
And I think DeSantis is going to give him pretty big coattails as
Yes,
well.
yeah.
Which is a shame for Democrats because Demings is a centrist ex-police chief. She's the kind of candidate who would work well for them in a place
Yes.
like Florida.
Yeah.
But I think DeSantis is going to blow her out of the water indirectly,
Yes.
personally.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Rubio is going to be doing much
No,
winning
no.
on his own merits. Michigan. Should do Michigan Corner. There we go.
Yes. I'm not wearing the hoodie today.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
Washington. Oh, God. Oh, I can't believe that. This is another state where there could be some 2024 mischief because
Yes.
Like the people who are up for election can, if Republicans win all of them and they all have stop the steal types,
Yes. Yep.
then they can cause some mischief in a key swing state. Unlikely to happen though, because the governor's race has become a rout off the
Yes.
back of abortion.
Yeah. Yep.
Essentially, there's a 1931 law in Michigan that bans abortion in all circumstances,
Yes.
unless the mother's life is in danger.
Yep.
Michigan is 58-33 pro-choice versus pro-life.
Yes. Yeah.
The Michigan legislature is completely gerrymandered for Republicans,
Yes.
and they aren't going to be passing any laws to overturn that law.
No.
That law has been injuncted by
Yes.
a
Yeah.
local court, but we'll see what happens there. But nevertheless, 67% of likely voters in an epic poll, would support a proposal that would legalize the abortion.
Yeah.
24% say they vote against that proposal. Guess what proposal they're trying to get up at the moment in Michigan? They're trying to get up exactly that proposal.
Yes.
But this is where it gets even worse for Republicans in a way.
Yeah.
Because they've got this, you need 450,000 signatures to get a ballot initiative up. And the group Reproductive Freedom for All got together 600,000 valid signatures
Yes.
for their petition to have a vote on the midterms about abortion. The Bureau of Elections, they ticked it off. They said no problems. But it had to go through the board of state canvassers to be approved, and that's 50-50 Dems and Republicans.
Yes.
The Republicans all voted to not put it on the ballot because, wait for it, of, quote, spacing and formatting errors in the text. So some of the words weren't spaced far enough apart in the text. So rather than just change the formatting,
Yes.
they voted it down. Michigan election law, you'd be surprised to hear, is silent on the amount of space that must be between letters and the words in the petition. So they have no grounds to stand on. That's been appealed to the Michigan Supreme Court.
Yes.
Whether it gets up or not, I think people are going to remember that. on
I think
election
that
day.
they will. Yes.
And so I don't think that the Republicans are going to win the governorship. So I don't
No.
think that's going to make any difference to 2024. I've got no other thoughts about that race.
Yeah, I agree with that read.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
on the race.
And we should just mention passing before we finish up. Wisconsin is another one of those 2024 states, key
Yes.
ones, because the Wisconsin has a heavily gerrymandered legislature.
Yes. Yep.
And the governor has been clinging on
Yes.
to overturn, to basically veto a whole bunch of really dodgy attempts
Yes,
to MAGA up their election laws. They actually have one of the best bodies in America for this in Wisconsin. They've got an elections board
Yes.
that was created by a previous Republican governor.
Yes. Yeah.
For the right reasons.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's a non-partisan body and it's really good.
Yes.
And that's why they hate it.
Yeah.
And so the legislature wants to get rid of it and pass it and replace it with a whole bunch of crony laws.
Yes.
And the governor is a Democrat, Tony Evers, who's just clinging on.
Yes.
He's running and he's neck and neck, literally dead even with a Trumpist Tim Mitchell's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or Tim Michaels. If Tim Michaels wins, they are going to
Yeah.
cause some serious mischief in Wisconsin, and to the point where I would write off Wisconsin as a potential state for Democrats to win in 2024.
Yeah.
So that's another one to watch as well from a 2024 point of view. And North Carolina is one that no one's talking about, but might actually be the closest.
But you will hear about it on PEP.
You will. It's Ted Budd versus Sherry Beasley. Ted Budd is not a crazy person, which is probably why we don't hear much about it. Sherry Beasley is a popular person amongst Democrats. She's got like 80% approval versus 3% disapproval. She's their Chief Justice of the State Supreme Court, and they like her a lot. Budd is less popular with Trump voters because he's not crazy. He's for 54% approval, 19% disapproval. They're basically dead even. But actually, that's not, even though that might determine the Senate, that's actually not the most 2024 relevant race. The most 2024 relevant race is the North Carolina legislature election.
Yeah.
Because they are 2 seats in the Senate and 3 seats in the House away from a supermajority.
Yes.
The Republicans, because they are also heavily gerrymandered. In fact,
Very,
they are
very
the most
heavily
gerrymandered.
Yes.
And if they win a supermajority, then they can overturn the vetoes of the governor,
Yeah.
who's a Democrat, and then they will go nuts because North Carolina legislature has shown absolutely no restraint whatsoever over the last 10 years. So that's my wrap. Do you have anything else to say about that?
No, I do not have anything else to say, no.
Okay. All right. Now we're way over time here. The one thing which I know you wanted to talk about, which you never time, but you might want to squeeze in now, or we can just pass it off to next week. Is Taiwan? Do you want to talk about Taiwan now or next week?
Let's talk about that next week.
Okay.
Because we also need to talk about Ukraine.
Yes, I want to talk about Ukraine. So yeah,
Right.
Yeah, so we can do that next week.
Yes, yeah. Let's leave the foreign policy.
Okay, we'll do that. And the other things, just as a little teaser, I want to do illegal immigration next week as well, because a lot's been happening there, and what's left over. I'm just keeping track is COVID, Supreme Court stuff, and the Inflation Reduction Act. That's the catch up list that we got.
We will have got all the way through it.
We will have. We won't get to those last 3 next week, but we'll get to them eventually. I haven't forgotten them. If there's anything else you want us to catch up on, just hit me up in the comments. In the day or two after I post this video, and I might just dop it on. So thank you very much, Dave, for that tour of America.
Thank you.
And the new right. And
Yes.
Rod Dreher. Hi to Rod Dreher if you're listening, by the way. He probably is. I will see you. There won't be a midweek podcast.
Sorry
this week.
about that.
Sorry about that. But we are the Plan America is coming back next Monday. Not is in 2 days' time, but is in 9 days. So it's coming. I will see you next week.
Yes.
And I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.